Welcome to 21st Century Saints Live. We are live on YouTube and on Facebook. We will be, the next couple of days, we will be releasing this as a podcast. Today, it's what is this, the 30th of June already, 2021. And we are a podcast and live stream series for members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and those who are affiliated or adjacent or around that whole thing. And today, so you may have noticed we don't have Alana with us today. I'm really sorry, guys. She's on having a well-deserved holiday, but she is sending her love. And we have Dr. Ken McFadyen in the online studio with us. It's really great to meet you, Dr. So what will I say, Dr. Ken, Dr. McFadyen, sir?
Ken, please. Oh, sir. No,
We'll go with Ken.
please call me Ken.
We'll go with that. I try always to sort of stick with the titles, but yeah, because I've been sort of calling you Ken all week, that works for me. Um, so, and I had no idea because we've only been typing. You're from Scotland too?
That's right, yes.
So good.
Although I don't live in Scotland now.
Oh, you don't? Right. Okay. Well, we can't have everything. So
Exactly.
yeah. Do you know it is so hot here today? It's unbelievable.
I
There's
think
been no rain.
my eyes must have said it all there because that's shocking to hear.
Yes. So yeah, we're having a nice chilled out chat tonight. Um, bringing sort of everything we've been talking about over the past few weeks to we're going to put a fine point on it tonight. This has been Pride Month, and I don't know, there's been so many great things that I've been seeing online about Pride Month. Still very little um, from our church, although there's been some lovely things. There are things out there if you're looking. Um, so would it be okay if we maybe start off with just sharing a little bit about you, where you're from, and all of those good things?
Okay, thanks, Lana. Thank you, Jane. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for asking me to take part in this tonight, as it is night in the UK. So little bit about me, I suppose. So I'm from a town called Paisley. Paisley is on the west coast of Scotland, just below Glasgow. And Paisley is famous for the Paisley pattern, which is a popular pattern found on fabric. So that's Paisley's claim to fame, really. But actually, Paisley has a few other claims to fame. Notably, it's got people like Paolo Nutini from. You would probably know who that is in the UK, maybe not if you're from a wider audience. And Tom Conti, who was a famous Scottish actor. So we have another few claims to fame. Um, I'm certainly not one of those claims to fame, but I'm here anyway, and I'm here really to uh, tell you about kind of my journey that's led me to the point today where I'm currently the president of the UK chapter, sorry, the UK and Ireland chapter of Affirmation, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that a little bit later.
Excellent. I'm excited to introduce Affirmation and its work to our audience who, yeah, I think most of the people that we've been chatting with recently don't really know a lot about Affirmation, although may have heard. So yeah, that will be great. So were you the way Paisley sort of works is we're sort of the other side of
Mm,
we're close by, we're like neighbouring stakes.
mm.
Um, we've got a lot of friends who were sort of out Paisley way, and yeah, growing up in the church, I think in that sort of generation that you would have been in, youth was, I think, pretty
Excuse
cool.
me.
So tell me, you weren't raised in the church, right? Did you
No, I
came in?
was a convert to the church. So I joined
Okay,
the church when I was 15.
okay,
Um,
that makes
so
sense.
let me tell you a little bit about that, if you don't mind. So where I'm from in Paisley, from a really quite poor background, from one of the council estates in Paisley. I'm not sure what term you would use, social housing perhaps you would use
Mm.
in other countries. And so from quite a disadvantaged background, really, by all accounts. And every once in a while, we would see these two young men in glistening white shirts, and they would be knocking on people's doors, and they would have American accents, and they would seem like they're very from a very distant land, offering something that we just didn't have where I was from. So a few times I kind of spotted these young men, didn't really take very much notice of it.
And what
Um,
sort of era, when are we talking about here? Sort of 90s-ish, 80s-ish?
Eighties.
I know it's such a cheeky question.
Okay,
It's
this is
relevant.
1950.
Okay.
So this was 1986.
Okay.
Okay, so I was 15 at the time. I'd yet to have a birthday. And maybe a few months up to that, I had been going to school and been having RE classes, so religious education classes. And I had started to become a little bit interested in why people believed the things that they did. I started going to the Church of Scotland with my grandmother and my mother, and just generally was dipping my toe into the water of religions. I remember asking my RE teacher, how does someone become Jewish without knowing anything about it? Um, and it was around the same time that these two, I happened to be off school one day, I can't remember why, and these two missionaries knocked on the door. So my mum had opened the door, and they had, introduced themselves and asked if we were interested. And, my mum said no. And I kind of came up behind her and said, "Oh, I'm interested. I'll listen to what you have to say." And I think they were probably flabbergasted, actually, because I don't think it was a usual thing in that area of Paisley to be let in someone's house. Um, so anyway, they came in and they presented the first discussion. So covering God, Joseph Smith. Um, it's been a while, Jane, to be fair.
Yeah, those basics, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the basics, and the Book of Mormon, obviously.
Mm.
And they left me with the Book of Mormon, and they asked me if I would pray to find out whether this book was what they claimed it to be. So it all sounded actually very very wholesome,
Yeah.
and they invited me to church, and I said that I would go. I think again, I think they were quite surprised that I said yes straight off, and they arranged for someone to pick me up. But I said no, I'll find my own way there. I've always been quite an independent kind of person, and so Sunday morning I turned up at church before the doors had been unlocked, and I was actually the first person there, because I was. Well, one, I was eager, but two, I'm maybe a little bit, what's the word? I like promptness. So people started arriving for church, and they were asking me, "Well, who are you?" I said, "Well, I introduced myself. So the missionaries came to my house and they invited me, so here I am." And the welcome was just so lovely. It was a real treat for me, from my background, to be treated as though I was someone special,
Mm.
and that was a breath of fresh air for me, and to be treated by adults as though they wanted me around, again, was a really nice thing for me. Um, the missionaries turned up with about 10 minutes before church, and they had to be told that they had an investigator at church. um, Sat through the first, sat through the service, went to young men's, went to Sunday school, just sat back and listened. again, all the members of the ward really welcoming, and really making me feel as though I belonged there, and I was welcome there. So before long, I kind of had this feeling that I was taught then was the Spirit
Mm-hmm.
that confirmed to me that the church was true, the Book of Mormon was the Word of God, and I decided then that, well, I should be baptized. So I was baptized into the church, and straight away, uh, you I'm not sure kind of what size the church is now in Scotland, but it wasn't very big. So straight away, I was ordained a teacher and made teachers president. Then a few months later, I turned 16 and was made a priest, and then became the priest. Oh, I can't remember what they call it, the president or something, assistant to the bishop or something like that. I can't
Uh-huh.
remember what the name was, but that gave me an opportunity to learn things that I wouldn't ever have learned anywhere else. So
Mm-hmm.
I learned that I could chair meetings. I learned that I could um, uh, take part in teaching. I learned that I could talk in front of 100 people. All these things that gave me a massive confidence boost that I just wouldn't have gotten anywhere else. Hands down, you
Yeah.
you can get them from other places, but not from where I'm from.
I do. Yeah, I do.
So the church was fantastic for me in terms of boosting my confidence, and I really changed a lot because I was very quiet, very shy. I later found out my mother used to worry about me because I was so shy, but I just became very confident, very outgoing, and much more sure of myself. And it was about this kind of time that I was doing. Uh, I'm of the time of O grades and hires,
Mm-hmm.
and so and for people who don't know, those are kind of high school exams that you take at 16 and then 17, 18, depending on your age. And I started to pass them all. Before I had been doing okay, um, but then I really started to pass them all. Um, and again, that gave me such a boost. I wouldn't really have attributed that to the church, but certainly I would have attributed my confidence in myself to then be able to, achieve what I did. Um, Interestingly, because it was never expected of me to become very much, I left school. Um, I actually had 10 O grades and 4 hires, and nobody ever expected. No one said to me, "Why don't you go to university?" Because it
Mm. It
just wasn't a thing for people from where I came from. Anyway, I'm
So
really
what were your family making of these changes in your life? What did your mom think?
my
Any
mum.
concerns about joining this church?
Uh, they didn't have concerns. No, I wouldn't say that they had concerns, but my dad was actually the son of a pastor who preached at the Church of the Nazarene. So my dad actually had some information about the church that he withheld from me because he wanted me to make my own choices
Wow.
and my own decisions, which actually I have to give him credit for. And my mum, I think my mum could see that I had found something that where I felt some belonging, and I think it gave her some what's the word? Maybe some reassurance
Yeah, yeah,
that I wasn't going to go down some path of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. That
yeah.
I had something to some alternative that actually was going to, as she thought, make life a bit better for me, which it
And
did for a long time.
yeah, and you use that word belonging, and one it mostly works, I think. When you go to church, you kind of slot in to the right place. So, if you're going in as a 15-year-old boy, you're going to slot into young men's. Later I would slot into Relief Society. You've got your place. How did you slot in? Was it did you enjoy your youth experience?
Well, actually, I absolutely loved it. I thought it was fantastic because I got the chance to do things that I would never have gotten to do. So, we got to go on trips, we got to do
Mm,
activities, there was just so many things that the church provided that just wasn't a thing in my life.
yeah.
Uh, and it really was very good for me, very, very beneficial. In terms of fitting in, I think I was a bit of an oddity amongst the young men because I had what was a testimony, and I think they were kind of looking at me as though I was a bit of a religious nutter, although they
Yeah,
were the ones who were attending church.
yeah, I totally get that.
Yeah.
But I mean, I mentioned earlier, it totally doesn't surprise me that someone would convert as a teen, and that at that time in Scotland, I think when you're right through into the 90s, it was a pretty cool time. The church, the sort of youth program, really cool things were happening.
We
Leaders
had
were really putting the
multi-stake,
work in.
multi-stake
Yeah.
meetings. So all the youth in the church in Scotland would meet in one place, and it was just fantastic. The things that were available to us were
Mm.
just phenomenal.
And one thing that I noticed, because I kind of, I was a teen convert too, but I kind of missed all of this stuff. But what I noticed is that so many of you all who were around that time are still in touch, are still really, really good friends. I find that fascinating.
Mm.
Something was definitely being done right at that point. I
Yeah,
think.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll go on later to talk about a kind of a schism that meant that I lost touch with a lot of people,
Mm,
but funnily enough, starting to regain that now
yeah.
through different means. But anyway, so
So where
so
do we go next? What's
so the, the,
what's
the
church
next
like?
thing that happens to me is I left school, so my mum rightly says you've got to get a job. Now, in Scotland in the late 80s, there was a recession.
Mm.
So actually finding a job wasn't as straightforward as it probably has been at other times. So I had to start applying far and wide uh, to places for work, and I ended up getting a job just outside London. So 17 years old, I on the bus on my way to London to start a new life. And I still have an image of all of the members of the church coming to the bus station to wave me goodbye, and that was a lovely memory to have and a
Yeah.
lovely experience. Um, because I think that I became a really quite a good example for their children, and so a lot of the parents of the children in the youth program really warmed to me, and one family particularly really took me under the wing, and so yeah, so that's what happened next, and I then arrived in just outside London, went into London to Hyde Park Chapel to tell them where I was living and to find out where was the nearest church to me. So found out that the nearest ward was called Slough Ward, and in Slough Ward, um, they had a really, really thriving young adult program. And by that time, I was on the cusp of being in the young adult program, and then attended church there for the next 7 years, with the exception of my mission. Um,
Wow, because that transition can be really tough. That from youth to the next age group. From what I noticed, that can be we're often. So you went on a mission.
yeah, so I stayed in that area for 3 years. Then went on a mission, aged 21 to 23. Um, and I when I tell non-members that I was a missionary, they're always like, "What? So, how did that happen?" And I often recite the a story that people who apply to serve missions, they get sent to places like New Zealand and Canada and France and the Caribbean, and I got sent to Birmingham. which essentially was the next mission north
Uh-huh.
of the country. So I spent my mission there. Had ups and downs on my mission, it'd be fair to say. I can't say it was the best experience, but again,
Mhm.
it gave me an awful lot of skills, an awful lot of skills that really, again, equipped me very well for later in life. You know, since being a missionary and being able to talk to anyone, stand up at a moment's notice and deliver, whatever in front of how many people, later in life when I became a university lecturer, I didn't bat an eyelid
Mm.
at anything that I had to do in a public arena because of that. So it was good for me, and mostly it was good for me. And also there were some downsides to serving a mission for me too.
Do you feel comfortable talking about some of those downsides?
Well, the downside mostly for me was related to my physical health. So on my mission, I developed a back problem,
Mm.
and this was about maybe about a year in, something like that. Um, and actually, to perfectly, this is completely unsubstantiated, but I think it was because I was carrying around scriptures and too many Book of Mormons
Yes.
on
Mhm.
a backpack.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that. Mhm.
So yeah, I developed a back problem that has never completely resolved. Every once in a while, it flares up, but that's pretty minor. So I went back home. Well, when I say home, I mean I went back to Slough Ward, and I got a job, and this is where kind of things started to take a bit of a turn for me.
Yeah, well, there are expectations, right? From it sounds like you have a really supportive church community. Everybody's cheering you on through every stage of life, and that's excellent. But now,
And
Ken, you're supposed to be
I,
settling down.
I'm loving the cheering as well.
Well, right, yes,
Because
absolutely. Because community, I think, is especially when the area that we live in is high in social deprivation, also. So having community when there's a lot of dysfunction in our natural geographical communities, having a church community it does so much for us. So but yeah, there's also that comes with the expectations. So you are now supposed to be I think I'm thinking less about you getting a good job, making sure your education's right, because that'll sort itself out. Now you need to be looking for the ladies. So
yeah,
tell
wow.
me about this stage in your life.
Well, actually, Jane, it's a little different to that.
Okay.
Yeah, because what actually happens is one of my best friends from my mission gets killed in a car crash,
Wow. Oh,
and he's killed in the car crash, and it really causes me to ponder and kind of do a lot of soul searching. And I knew I was gay, and at that point, I just thought, had that been me, I would not be getting into the celestial kingdom.
Ken.
So I did what I was kind of taught was the right thing to do. So I go to my bishop, and my bishop, kind of makes the assumption that, oh, it must be hard because he's just lost his friend, and I say yes, it is, but there's more to it than that. And so I say, actually, I have these attractions, and actually I'm attracted towards men. I'm not attracted towards women. And he then does a little bit of research in terms of actually that's not true. That wasn't research. He asks some questions of state presidency and all that kind of stuff. And he comes back and he says, "Oh, you can go to LDS Social Services, and there's a therapy that you can have to change you from being gay to being straight."
And it's
And it's
told
called,
to you in those terms, yeah?
yeah,
He okay.
yeah. So, but you have to kind of think that this was the early 90s. It wasn't way out of the ballpark.
Mm.
even within the secular world, to believe that kind of stuff. So it was, that this was in the background of the AIDS epidemic and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, well, who wants to be gay? And it's like, oh, you mean that I can have this therapy and I can be straight? Wow, that's amazing. I'll absolutely jump at that big time. And the sort of person that I am, if I'm going to do something, I do it 110%. And I know that that's a really common trait amongst the LGBTQ community, for lots of underlying kind of psychological reasons. So,
Tell me, how do you see yourself at this point? So you talked about the celestial kingdom. Do you you see those urges as inherently sinful?
mm,
Um,
this was the
where
early
did yourself
90s. Early 90s, homosexuality is second to murder. And, there was a quote somewhere, I can't remember which pamphlet it was in, that one of the general authorities said that he would prefer that his son tie a millstone around his neck and drown himself in the Great Salt Lake than be gay. So, you know, the option of, being next to murderer, second to murderer, or to be fixed, because I thought I was broken, was like, oh, I'm gonna jump at that. I'm gonna give that my all. So I spent the next 18 months in reparative therapy. And do I need to
Yeah,
like
talk to us about what reparative therapy is, because I've only ever heard of conversion therapy. Is it the same thing? Are there differences?
It's a subheading of conversion therapy. There are several types of conversion therapy, one of which is reparative therapy. So reparative therapy is based on the notion that there is a dysfunctional relationship between the child and father, and that this creates a void. And in puberty, this void becomes sexualized, and that is why you become attracted to males, because a void that has been created has somehow made me gay. Now, um, when that was explained to me, I thought it was fantastic. I thought, now I know why. I get it now. I get why I'm gay. And at that point, I had no sort of training in critical thinking or anything like that. So I absolutely took that hook, line, and sinker, because I wanted there to be an explanation.
There's an answer.
I needed there to be an explanation. Why was I different to what I thought everybody? Obviously, down the line now, I know that I wasn't the only gay person in the church in the UK, but at the time it was very isolating. So the reparative therapy idea is that, well, you repair this relationship, hence the word reparative. You repair the void by kind of aligning yourself more closely with masculine traits and masculinity. Now, I didn't think I was particularly feminine anyway, but I wanted to believe this, so completely went down that road. So this was that, hanging out with guys in a do you know, even as I talk about this now, just like how gullible I was, because actually I was hanging out with guys because I had male friends, and I kind of convinced myself that what was being handed to me, and I was taking, and I take responsibility for that, and I was taking, was absolute 100% truth. And so I distorted my kind of reality to fit with that, so that I could then be fixed. Now, during this time, I met a really, really lovely. I'm going to use the word girl, but she was a woman at the time. But I felt like I was a boy. So really, really, very, very faithful, very pretty, uh, very, just everything that you could imagine that you would want in a wife, um, except for the obvious for me. Um, but I was on the kind of church path of, okay, now you're back from your mission now, and it's 18 months, Ken, 18 months,
Yeah.
um, and no one actually ever said that to me, and no one ever directly pressured me to go down the path that I did. But there's a very strong narrative in Mormonism that
Yeah.
is what you do, or should
Well,
I say Latter-day Saint?
yeah, we can joke about it. We are, as a community, all invested in your journey, and yeah, I mean, there is pressure without anybody
Yeah.
tapping their watch. That is what is expected. I mean, I've been that person. It's yeah. We've all we know what that community looks like and the pressure that comes with that. So tell me, at this point, when you've met this wonderful woman, are you still is this therapy an ongoing process? Do you stay with that, or is it for a fixed period of time? How does that look?
So at the time, I'm still
Okay.
attending.
Okay.
Um, um, and just to rewind a little bit in
Mm.
terms of the kind of church unspoken pressure, I wanted to be married. I wanted to have a family.
Yes, of course.
I wanted to have all the things that other people had. So I do take my part in that too. I take my responsibility. Um, so I'm still attending reparative therapy, and I'm going out on dates with this young woman, and I get to a point where I have to tell her that actually, I really have strong feelings for you, but I'm attracted to men, and that I I'm always a very honest person, and I thought that irrespective of what anyone else would have thought at the time, I thought that she had the right to know that,
Yeah.
and she had the right to choose whether we were going to continue this relationship. Um, she had a conversation with my bishop. Bishop told me that I was kind of, going through this. Bishop told her I was, kind of going through this church-approved therapy, that would help to make me straight, and that actually it wasn't anything that she should overly worry herself about. So I asked her to marry me, and fortunately she said yes. And I I actually don't have any regrets about that. For me, um, I hope that she doesn't have regrets. And we have two children, and you know I would never want to change anything in my life at all that would mean that I would never have them in my life. So it's a very mixed bag in terms of, actually this was a woman that I really had a lot of love for, and ticked all the boxes. Um, but at the same time, I couldn't really get away from the fact that I was still attracted to men, and I felt such disappointment in myself, because I was, despite all this therapy, despite all the fasting, all the prayers, all the scripture reading, everything done to the letter of the law, I still found myself attracted to men.
And
But
so, did you feel? Did you? Was that your fault? how were you feeling at the time? Did you, or were you seeing this as a process that's not working, or that you're just not doing something right?
Well,
Or
there was a time actually where I kind of thought that I could be attracted to men, but keep it under wraps. Keep it
mm,
down enough to get through life, and it would be okay. But that's not what happened in the end. Um, so I was married for 4 years, and by that time I had done my psychology undergraduate degree, and I began to work for IBM, and I was away a lot, um, and I started to kind of realize that I'm not missing my wife in a way that I should, and it started to
yeah.
weigh me down big time. Um, and um, I spoke to her about it. Again, being very honest and upfront. Uh, we made an appointment to go to LDS Social Services again, and we saw the counsellor who had gone through the reparative therapy with me. And this time I had a psychology undergraduate degree. And so I said to her, where's the evidence that this works?
Hmm.
Show me something that makes it worth me, continuing to put myself through this. And she was a lovely person, actually, really lovely person, and actually very sincere in what she was doing, and believed what she was doing, and I did at the time too. So I hold no responsibility or accountability for what happened to me towards that person at all.
Yeah.
Um, but so she comes out with a journal article that says about this number of people who were gay and they went through this process and now they don't identify as being gay. And I think there's a bit more to this. Um, and one of the key kind of components of critical analysis is looking for publication bias. So I turn to the front of the journal, read the name of the journal, and it's the Journal of the National Association of Research and Treatment of Homosexuality. So I'm like, that doesn't sound like it's going to be um, reviewed by people who have an open mind and who are going to apply scientific vigor to this research study that I'm being showed. And people who are going to publish in a journal like that for research and treatment of homosexuality
Mm.
are already going to have an inherent bias. And so straight away, I spotted the publication bias. So on the basis of that, I decided that I had seen enough, and I didn't think that this process was going to be for me. And much to my disappointment and my wife's disappointment, I kind of decided that I really needed to start living my life more authentically.
Now, up until this point, what does your relationship with church look like? How are you experiencing church? Are you holding callings? Are you?
I was so I was so the callings I can't remember the order now, but the callings that I had was Sunday school president, young men's president, bishopric when I was 25. You kind of would say that I was kind of on a path.
You're the Mormon dream, yeah.
Well, turned out nightmare, but not for me. Not for me now. So where was I? Yeah, my kind of relationship with the church was great. I loved going to church. I loved the community. I loved that when we moved wards, there was an instant community there. It really was. It was great. And again, you have a connection with people that's you know, based on the church, which later I'll talk about. Actually, I think is regretful because it turns out to be the only connection.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
And so okay, so church is great, but I'm feeling terrible,
Mm.
absolutely terrible. Um, Talking about it with my ex-wife now. We're very good friends. Talking about it with her now, and obviously with my professional background now, I recognise that I was in the midst of a mental breakdown.
Yeah.
I simply could not live. I wasn't prepared to live two lives, so I wasn't going to, mess around with guys, and I wasn't going to, do that whilst being married, and so, the choice for me was actually we needed to, we both kind of, agreed that we needed to be divorced. Um, so we separated. There is more to that story, but it involves someone else, and I don't feel like it's
Of
really
course. Yeah.
necessary to involve that. But if people want to ask me about it privately, that's absolutely fine. Um, so I get to the point where um, I'm doubling down on myself, fasting, praying, almost constantly. We're doing everything. We do family home evening, we do scripture study, we do prayers, blessed food, you name it, we do it. Both me and my ex-wife are very much all in. And still
Can
nothing changes.
I ask, are you at this point, and it's actually it's a fairly personal church question. What are you fasting for? Are you fasting still to somehow be changed or to make your
Yeah,
marriage work or
no,
all?
no.
Mhm.
Actually, the marriage was good.
Yeah.
We had a very happy marriage. We were great friends. Um, you know, we really, we had a great time. Um, but there was just this one thing that was just unsurmountable. Um, and so I was fasting and praying and, all those things. And, I would, she would come into the bedroom, often I'd be in tears. I just don't know how I can, carry on like this. And I decided that, the kind of thoughts went through my head that for my children, it would be better for them to have a dead dad than a gay dad. And actually, that was the saving point for me, because when that thought crossed my mind, I was like, no way, no way is that right. There's something very wrong here.
Mm,
If I think it's better for my children to have no dad than to have a gay dad.
yeah.
And, that was probably over, I'm talking about this as though it was a short period of time. It was a lot longer period of time. And then we separated. Um, and, we, you know, first and foremost, um, you know, my responsibilities to my kids never change. Not to this day. Because I'm not present in the household anymore, changes my responsibilities not one iota. So,
I love
um,
that.
so I do everything that I can to to keep things good for the kids. And my ex-wife, it must have been so difficult for her to accommodate me at weekends, me phoning every single day. Whilst she is heartbroken because this hasn't worked out, and it's a massive uh, what's the word? It just says so much about her and her strength and fortitude that she was able to do that for our kids. And now I'm so glad that I married that woman, uh, because of who she is, and who
And
she
I,
continues to be.
yeah, I want to just take a moment just to honor her. I mean, obviously, the church in the UK is quite small, and she's someone that I consider a friend to, and is just so full of respect and honor, and I she is the great lady that you describe, and so I want to just honor your journey as you listen to this, which I'm sure that she said that she was going to. So yeah, just want to shout out some love and bless your journey. Um, so you guys seem to be creating the healthiest version of a relationship that you can. Obviously, no one's perfect. It's always going to be a work in process. You guys seem like you're in a good a good place, compared
Well,
to. Mhm.
I think we both felt the same about the kids,
Yeah.
you know, and we always said that, we may be separate, we may not be husband and wife anymore, but we are always your parents,
Mm.
and that can't change. And so everything that goes along with being a parent doesn't change for either of us.
So where does that take you in your journey now? Where?
Okay, so very quick, compression of the last 20 years, because this was over 20 years ago.
Sure.
So I meet another man, and I'm working for IBM. I'm a square peg in a round hole because it just doesn't suit me at all. And he encourages me to apply to train to be a clinical psychologist, which I did. Um, it's a very competitive process in the UK here. It's about there's about for every 15 places, there's about 400 applicants.
Wow.
So I was so lucky, so fortunate, to get onto that training program. So I became a clinical psychologist. Then, I work as a clinical psychologist. I do that still. My relationship with the church, I was excommunicated. Um, and at that point, that's when I learned that all of the friendships that I had, or thought I had, was actually predicated upon being a member of the church. And that was very, very hurtful, very hurtful. Um, I had friends that I spent hours listening to their problems, because it's the kind of person I am. Giving lots of support to people, um, and then, all of a sudden, my life is empty, and that was incredibly hurtful. But that was then, and this is now. So fast forward, I work in adult mental health. Then, when my son is about 12, 13, I can't remember the exact age, we start getting some kind of signs that something's not quite right. You know, uh, my ex-wife had said to me previously, "Do you think he might be gay?" And I'm like, "I don't think so. I don't, I can't. I don't know." But anyway, some things happened in his life, and I had a conversation with him in the car, where the car's moving, the door's locked, so he can't get out. And and I say to him, you might not know this yet, or you might not want to say, but I just want you to know that, if you know that you're gay, that's okay. And he, he burst into tears, and yes, I am. And I'm like, well, obviously it's fine with me. um, and without, kind of talking for my ex-wife, um, she, uh, did not struggle with him being gay one iota, but she really struggled with the church's position on him being gay. Really
And
struggled.
he was actively going to the youth program, going to your men's class at this point.
No, by that point, he had actually chosen to come and live with me and my partner.
Right, right.
Um, so he had stopped going to church maybe for about 6 months, a year before that. Um, I'm guessing, and I'll have a conversation with him about this at some point, but I'm guessing that he just realized that the church, that there was no place for him,
Mm, mm.
unfortunately. Um,
And
like there was no
let
place
me,
for me.
yeah, let me just do a happiness check and just to sort of check at this point where you guys are at, because it sounds so much like every stage of your church development, which is around about the same stage as your life development, right? We're kind of going in a parallel here. Um, your sexual orientation has been something that's been quite traumatic or worrying, sinful, problematic, something to be fixed. And the trauma that comes with excommunication and losing your church community and all of that. Having got through all of that, and you're now with someone, you're in a relationship, your son, you're in the car with him, parenting 101, locking him in to have a conversation because you're moving, you're not going anywhere. Um, are you happy at that point? Are you
Yeah,
happy?
yeah, I'm very happy. Yeah,
Excellent.
I've been
Excellent.
very happy for a very long time at that
Yeah.
point. Um, in order to kind of survive that trauma, if you like, I had to just put everything behind me. I just had
Mm,
to put it behind me and not forget it, because you can't forget, but I just had to disassociate myself from the church. Um, I would never have disassociated myself from my friendships, but that was done for me. Um, but you know, I'm a friendly kind of person. I made other friends very quickly. Friends from work who were so supportive. You know, on the one hand, I've got these people in church who are shunning me, and then on the other hand, I'm coming out to people at work, and they're like, "Oh, we love you. This is fun. This is great. You come to us." I had a friend who said, "I've got a room. Come and stay in my house." And so I rented a room from her for a long time, and it was the difference between night and day, actually. And on reflection, I'm thinking, hang on, aren't these people who are supposed to be, kind of loving kindness, um, finding the lost sheep, all that kind of stuff? Where are they? Why are they not? And actually, what I found was actually it was the people in the world who actually gave me the most compassion and the most kindness um, during that really difficult period in my life. And there's something very wrong with that.
I am so sorry.
Jane, that's lovely of you to say, but you don't carry the responsibility of other people.
Yeah, I think it's just really important that if as a community, if there's something not right, that we can acknowledge that's not right. And I'm really, really sorry that happened to you. And uh, my vision of a church is one where that would never have happened. And
Yeah, yeah. Well, so fast forward a few more years,
okay.
uh, gay marriage is becoming a thing in the UK, and the church, or members of the church, I should probably most correctly say, I think, although I'm a bit dubious about that,
Yeah.
uh, start petitions, against gay marriage. And my daughter is at a party, uh, a church kind of thing, and these people arrive for everyone to sign this petition against gay marriage. So my daughter has her dad, who is gay, uh, her who she considers her stepdad, who is gay and her brother who is gay, and is, you know, presented with this, you know, hatred, and the rhetoric that kind of went behind all that kind of stuff, and the assumptions about how gay people live their lives, about, you know, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And my daughter's sitting there like, well, my dad's not like that. You know, my stepdad's not like that. My brother's not like that. There's a mismatch here. And over the course of time after that, she decides that she can't support an organization that treats her parents, because she calls me and him the parents, um, and her brother. So
Was your
so
daughter in the youth program at this time? Was
yeah,
that?
yeah, she was in the youth program.
And I just want to call out, because I've served in young women, still currently serving young women, but I've served in the young women's program a few times, and I just want to honour that too. That is an act of integrity. Yeah, that makes me so proud to hear. That's what we're teaching.
Yeah.
That's what we should be teaching. And the hate speech, I'm so glad that she could see it for what it was.
Well, I think that she could see it for what it was because she had the living examples
Yeah.
in front of her every day that went against that.
Mm.
You know, so because of all these issues, then, so I'm excommunicated. Uh, Me and my wife are divorced. My son leaves the church. My daughter leaves the church. And I just think that there's a better way.
For the church too, because a church with a family who are loving, who are kind, who are, um, living Christian values, the church loses out on that. That's awful.
Well, the church loses out on the family, and the church loses out on the, you know, I don't want to sound boastful or anything here, but the church loses out on my skills
Yeah, I, I
and the
mean,
church, and what my
I
son became and what my daughter
yeah,
became, you know,
yeah.
and it's a loss for the church.
It is, and it means that when hate speech comes around, as it does regularly, if you are not there in the church community demonstrating that this is what a healthy lifestyle looks like, instead we push that away. People can't recognize that that's not what is being taught, what is being claimed in these petitions, or whatever leaflet drop it is at the time, whatever social media post that's being shared. We can't call it out and say that's not true, that's not how it looks.
Yeah,
It becomes something to be feared because we pushed it away.
yeah,
um,
and we push that way because it doesn't fit our rhetoric.
it's scary
Mm, mm.
to so many members. It's actually, I think they could cope so much better with Satan appearing incarnate rather than. I mean, I'm being really, really not fair, because I know that we have come a long way, and I know that there is so much great work being done. However,
Yeah, there's a long
those
way
things
to
happened. Those things
go.
happened.
Yeah.
So where do we go now?
Okay. So, um, by I had been pretty much ignoring the church for 15 years, taking no notice of it whatsoever. Didn't hold any significance in my life. Children weren't attending. I'd hear about it every once in a while from my ex-wife, um, and that's about the space the church occupied in my life. Then I get a friend request on Facebook from someone who was one of those friends who then kind of who now I want to put this carefully because I don't want to do him a disservice because I think he did what he was conditioned to do. So he was one of the people who basically withdrew contact from me, and I get a Facebook request from him. So I'm like, that's interesting. What's he wanting to talk to me about? Why is he wanting to connect? So I look on his page, and I'm like, is that a glass of wine? So I'm like, oh, there's something different here. So I accept the request, and then we start a conversation. And at that point, I start to get introduced to the topics about youth suicide rates, and lots of mixed orientation marriages, and the destruction that is left behind because of those. And just bombarded with so much hurt that I had no idea was there. And I just think I've got to do something about this. I think I've been fortunate enough to get through all that. I've been fortunate enough to be in a very comfortable position now. I've been fortunate enough to train in my profession. I really have some skills and some knowledge that I think could benefit people who struggle, who are at this intersection, because I've been there. And that's where affirmation comes in.
So, okay, so what year is that? What year have you taken us up to roughly?
Roughly about 2017-18.
Okay, that's perfect, because what I'd like to do before we get to 2017, so the 2015, the November 2015 policy has happened by that point. Could you maybe share your perspective on that? Because I know that lots of UK Latter-day Saints, when you hear it, you may be aware of it, but lots of still not quite sure what that whole thing was all about and why it's still important. Could you maybe talk a bit about your perspective on that?
Yeah, my perspective on that was, oh my goodness, the church has scored a home goal big time with this. And I'll tell you why on a very personal level.
Yeah.
My daughter was in England, they call it in sixth form, and in Scotland, they call it fifth and sixth year. So my daughter was in sixth form, and she moved school because she wanted to have a new start and have a good crack at academic achievement. So she moved in with me and my partner. Now, this November 2015 policy, I hope my ex-wife doesn't mind me saying this, but it sends her into freefall, because now my daughter either needs, if she wants to go to church, she wants to get married in the temple, she has to denounce me and my partner. She has to, I can't remember what all the stipulations were, but
Yeah.
they were frankly ridiculous, and it was never going to happen. But my very much believing ex-wife, was, really, it was almost like a nail in a coffin for her, because how could she find a way for her daughter to get back to church? Because there was no way she was going to denounce me and her stepdad's relationship. No way, you know. Um, and reading kind of the fallout from all that, it's horrific, absolutely horrific, and the destruction that policy did was just shocking. So on a very personal level, I know how much that affected my ex-wife, and yeah, it just, it, do you know, it really saddens me, because I had been getting a bit of an inkling that the church wasn't going to change doctrine. Don't get me wrong, but there was some quotes that were being talked about in general conference, about um, we need to try harder and be more inclusive and all that kind of stuff. And then this happens, and it's like, what on earth were they thinking?
We would get that little bit of hope and, some signals that, kindness is really being emphasized.
Absolutely.
The policy seemed to have dropped for, it was a bolt from the blue, and children um were not able to be baptized until they were, what, 18, I think it was,
18
something like that,
and denying.
and
Yeah.
had to denounce their parents' relationships. um and just horrific. And I think if there's one thing that has made me so pleased, is that huge amounts of people were expressing their pain about this. People that I hadn't really expected to be commenting on it, they did, and it was just along the lines of, "This hurts. This is really hard. I can't believe this is happening." And the church seems to have listened. Something seems to have happened there, and then the policy was. How would you describe the policy change? Because I don't want to say rescinded.
Well, I think it was rescinded, wasn't it?
Yeah.
As far as I
Yeah,
know.
I feel uncomfortable with using the word rescinded, because if the intent behind it still exists, and there wasn't, an apology or anything, and an acknowledgement for, I guess the fact that if you being completely, you are one of so many people who had been trying to make it work, who'd been listening to the council of church leaders. If you get married, if you do all the things you're supposed to do, the result will be you will not experience same-sex attraction any longer, and we will never say the word homosexuality out loud. We'll focus on that. And you did all of those right things, and then in 2015, now the children that you guys have had can't even be baptized unless they wait for, but so the rhetoric around it was really problematic, and has never actually really been um confronted. It just sort of was dropped with some very nice language around it, but it wasn't something that was able to sort of undo the damage, in my opinion. Um,
I just thought it was just so problematic in so many ways. The policy itself,
mm,
um, you know, man is punished for his own transgressions, not for Adam's, and all that kind of stuff.
yeah,
It made no sense to me.
yeah,
And even I think even if I'd still been attending church, I I couldn't square that at all.
yeah.
Um, but I'm not going to comment hugely on the policy and doctrine and stuff like that, because that never.
Yeah, I totally hear where you're coming from, and you know what, I think that it's very rare that I do tend to make a comment. I tend to be the listener in it, but like I say, I feel like when we need to acknowledge that something's happening within our community that causes hurt, I would like to be the person who says, "This was wrong, and I'm really, really sorry this happened," and to work to fix it, rather than, all the times when I didn't, all the times when I waited to see what was going to happen, or
Mhm.
just stayed silent because I felt like, it wasn't the right method to speak up. So,
Yeah,
I,
and
yeah.
Jane, the word hurt doesn't do it justice. But there is no word that
Mm,
can do it justice for what happened to some people.
yeah. So, talk to me about affirmation. Why why is affirmation even needed? What is it, and what's it doing?
Okay, so my ex-wife and I, we've remained really good friends throughout, all of our lives, and we she recognizes that, if our son wanted to come back to church, there's no space for him. I recognize that there are some people who are gay and are Mormon and LDS and
That's okay.
want to attend church,
Yeah.
you know. So I kind of think, well, I want to be able to have some influence in making sure that those places are as safe as possible for people who live in that space. And I kind of think that again, without being boastful, I don't like saying it, but I kind of think that I have an ability and a skill set that people are likely to listen to. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I have the title and I have the profession that people tend to like. So I kind of want to use that for good. Um, and so affirmation. So Claire, oh, I just said her name. Sorry.
We love you. We still love you. We'll
um,
use the play button.
I've been so careful tonight. so my ex-wife and I we have a conversation amongst ourselves. You know, what can we do to somehow get into a position where people can feel safe to come to us if they are trying to navigate these really difficult waters of being LDS, being gay, either being in the church, being out of the church, however they are, wherever they are on their journey, and make it as safe as possible. And I'd heard of an organization called Affirmation. So I look it up. oh, uh, Claire's just telling me it's fine to use her name.
We love you, Claire.
Okay, so I've heard of an organization called Affirmation, and so now I'd heard about it a long, long time ago, but now of course you can look online. So look online, and I looked and thought, oh, this looks like something that we are actually wanting to do anyway. So why don't we just use, if this already exists, why don't we use it as a vehicle to achieve the aims that we wanted to achieve that actually align with the aims of affirmation anyway. So it felt sensible to not reinvent a wheel when
Yeah.
the wheel was already there.
So what are those aims?
So those aims are to support people in their LGBTQIA plus whatever journey, wherever they are in the relationship with the church, whether that be as an active member of the church and wanting to attend, or whether it be a former member of the church. So where people are active in the church, affirmation wants to provide guidance and support to people who are LGBTQIA plus, or to leaders to make sure that their congregants, who they have a responsibility for, feel safe and feel wanted, and that they can have a spiritual life how they want it to be. Or where people want to leave the church, we want them to be able to leave the church with the least amount of spiritual wounding as possible. And affirmation does not influence which way people go. They do not say you should go to church. They do not say you shouldn't go to church. We're just there to stand beside someone and support them on their path and make sure that they do it in a way that is the most healthy for them.
You know, I feel like I made a covenant to do exactly that. That sounds, I love those aims.
Yeah, doesn't that sound familiar?
It really does. So what does Do we know what the church makes of affirmation? Where does it sit with the organisation?
So the church knows about affirmation.
Hmm.
Church leaders have met with leaders of affirmation. The church charitable arm, so not the church directly, has donated money to affirmation. Um, all positive signs,
Yeah.
I'd say. Um, Now, uh, Claire and I have met with leaders of the church in the UK, area presidency level, to let them know about affirmation and affirmation's aims. And we have had some state presidents and bishops reach out to us, who have told us that they have a member in their ward who has come out as trans. We don't know what to do. How can we support this person
Ah,
on their journey?
well done,
Um,
those bishops and stake presidents.
oh,
That's awesome.
it is absolutely amazing. And having face-to-face, well, online conversations with those people, I was just so
Mm,
impressed that those men could have such compassion, and want to herd their sheep, want to protect their flock, which is, in my mind, kind of what they're supposed to do.
exactly.
Um, it's been a privilege, to be part of those conversations, and I hope that affirmation, through Claire and I, and other members of affirmation, I hope we've been able to, show that actually there, whilst it's a very delicate balance, when all is said and done, you need to look after your flock. And whether that flock is male and identifies as female or vice versa, do you know what? Surely that, God said, love everyone.
Mm,
He didn't say, um, love everyone, but not if you're trans, not if you're gay, not if you're bisexual or asexual, whatever you might be. You know, there were no caveats to that I know of, and so it's a pleasure to be part of an organisation that aims to assist the church in being able to do that.
So I want to jump in for a second just to kind of acknowledge that my experience, as an out married bisexual woman who is a mother, who is an active church member, I have had so much privilege within my church community because it's just not really a thing. So I talk about it. I'm quite open and public about it, but my life looks very orthodox. It fits within the church bubble. I'm very aware that first of all has been due to looking quite orthodox. It's been due to having really supportive, good leadership, but also I'm very, very aware that is not everyone's experience. So, for example, we have a new family member who's with us permanently, who we love, who is trans and who we know is not going to have similar experiences, and so we want to make sure that they are safe, that they're protected from potentially damaging teachings and things like that. So because this is something that I know how much damage is done to our individuals, our families, and our church communities, our church as a whole, when we don't get it right. Can you speak a bit about why is affirmation needed? Why can't we just send anyone who has any concerns around these issues to the bishop and they should be able to take it from there? Why do we need affirmation?
Well, with all due respect to the men who serve as bishops and the time that they give, in my experience, they're often out of their depth, when it
Mm.
comes to these issues, because these issues don't exist in isolation. They exist amongst mental health difficulties. They exist amongst suicidality. They, they exist amongst self-medicating through alcohol or drugs. You know, all those things. With all the best will in the world, bishops are not equipped to deal with that kind of thing. And and a bishop who thinks he is, I'd be very worried about.
Yeah.
So
And I think you're right. I mean, I love the idea of having a bishop that I can talk to. I've been fortunate that I have had, bishops I can talk to who I can see as a pastoral leader. Um, but however, I have required therapy because that's an important part of my journey and my processing, how I understand my relationship with God. Um, when we have our wonderful non-binary teen, the first thing we've had to do is look, okay, which therapies are right for you, when what do we need to do to make sure that you're getting the right support, and not a well-meaning, really loving guy who
yeah,
can be a great friend, but also, as a parent, we mess up. I'm not going to say the right things all the time, and we do need to have experts.
yeah, absolutely.
How are LGBTQ teens and adults experiencing the church at the moment? What are you hearing?
Mixed messages, very mixed messages. And actually, mixed messages are almost worse sometimes,
Mm,
because
yeah,
on the one hand you're giving, and then on the other you're taking away. So there's a lot of inconsistency, and that is terrible for people's mental health. You know, consistently bad, you know what to expect. Consistently good, you know what to expect. But mixed messages can be very damaging. Um, and unfortunately, whilst there is some positive direction quotes coming from some general authorities, that's not uniform either.
yeah,
Um, and so there's mixed messages coming from leaders. Uh, and there are things that have been said from General Conference that have been incredibly hurtful. And, young people of any age, of course, hear those things and it sticks. Because if it applies to you, you're going to remember it.
yeah,
And so there's a lot of damage that has been done because of some of the things that have been said. And to be perfectly honest with you, Jane, at the moment, um, it appears to me that whilst there are a lot of people in the church, like yourself, like guests that you've had on, you know, like a lot of the Facebook group members that I'm a member of, they really have so much anguish about these issues because they love the church, but they see how the damage has been done. And it's not just to the person who may be LGBTQIA plus, it's to the brothers, it's to their sisters, it's to the mums, dads, uncles. There's just so much damage being done that is why affirmation needs to be around, because there needs to be a presence and a resource for people who want to um, help others and support others to walk that delicate line, whichever side of the line they want to walk. There has to be people here to help them do it.
absolutely. Ken, where does that take us to in your story? Where are you right now?
So right now, my professional life continues as it is. Um, my I like being part of Affirmation because I like giving service. That's something that I missed actually. Um, Not being part of the church, it was the opportunity to give back a bit, and so I feel like I'm able to do that, through Affirmation. And life for me is good. My children are thriving. My children, we were fortunate enough that they both attended university. They both completed degrees very successfully. My son has his dream job, working um, in aviation, as an aviation consultant. My daughter is currently doing a master's degree in psychology because she wants to be a clinical psychologist.
Of course she is. I love that.
And so life is good. Life is really good. Um, and I won't speak for my ex-wife, but she is in a better place with regards with the church policies and all those sorts of things. And even now we continue to be parents to our children. We attend events together. We attended graduation together. We uh, weirdly, Claire and I have our birthdays on the same day, so they come to our houses, and we spend birthdays together. And, very, I realize how very, very fortunate I am. One, to be a gay man and have children, which I love, and two, to have had such a wonderful, wonderful woman navigate this with me to the point where we're at now.
I love that. There's a question from our friend of the show, Debbie, who wants your thoughts on how church members can be allies to LGBTQ members and non-members.
Yeah, thanks, Deborah. That's a really good question. I think that your example of the things that you're doing
Mm.
is a amazing way to do that. So I know that there has been firesides that have been held where there's been awareness raising. Uh, there, in fact, Affirmation has been asked to do a fireside for reward in Scotland, actually. um, uh, I think, actually, to be honest with you, I think there's lots of things that you can do as an individual. I
Mm.
think that challenging the rhetoric in a non-threatening way when it's heard at church, I think that needs to be done. I
Yeah.
don't think it is good enough to be silent. I don't think that you should argue, but I just think that there can be ways in which things can be said that very much uh, signifies that you do not approve of the comment and you do not think that God would approve of the comment. Um, I think that individuals, I think that you can show your support to them by, you know, little things like perhaps wearing a rainbow, having a rainbow in your scriptures, or having a key ring, just something visible that signifies that you're safe and that you're an ally. And I just see a comment there: "Love is love," and absolutely it is. And there's no there has to be no qualification about love being expressed, and it is to be unconditional. And being an ally is, certainly, a fantastic thing that you can do, because you don't know who around you is a member of the LGBTQIA
Yes.
plus community. You have no idea. And one of my favorite quotes is, "Be careful who you hate because it could be someone you love."
Mm.
And, we talked very briefly before the show started. And, we talked about the experience of someone who we both know, and how when you find out that someone that you know turns out to be a member of this community, you start to backtrack and you start like, what did I say? What did I do? What comments did I make? And actually, um, I guess that don't be in a position, don't get yourself into a position where you have to then justify what you said to someone
Mm.
when you later find out that they are a member of this community.
One of the really cool things that so Debbie mentioned in the comments earlier, she used the word repentance, and when we were speaking to Susie, Papa Osler back on one of our first shows, and they had talked about this idea of repentance. And the thing is, we say things all the time. We've been taught very binary ideas that maybe if something isn't working or it is not clearly not of God, this thing that we thought we were holding on to, it's not right. We can, as an act of repentance, put it do right by by, like you say, by the people who are listening. I was so impressed. I don't know if anybody so last Sunday I had sort of a breakdown live chat with Alana about this subject of just sort of seeing hate speech. And what I'd really appreciated is that seeing hate speech online, we had a guy who'd served as a young men's president who had sort of reached out to say, look, this is going to be harsh and this could hurt some people that are part of our community. Um, he had already been, sort of made a really supportive comment that was just full of kindness and was wonderful. Um, and what ended up happening is that all of these people who have been affected by this comment are contacting me or contacting him or one of our colleagues to say, what was that? But also thank you for saying that thing. Thank you for I think it's so so true that you just don't know who's listening. And there can be this idea in our wards that there's not really that many people that are affected by LGBTQ issues. You maybe have someone who's trans who maybe, if maybe a gay person, but it's not that common, right?
No, you don't know, do you?
It, absolutely. And the thing is there, as soon as someone knows that you're a safe person, that's when they start speaking out. Um,
And
I have
do you know about the research that says that if if someone in the LGBTQ community um, knows that there's just one single safe person, the risk of suicide dramatically reduces.
yeah, exactly. My non-binary teen, when I found out that just by doing one simple thing, I could negate the risk of suicide to what is, what would be sort of the same for anyone, just by using their correct pronouns,
Yeah.
just by doing that one thing.
Hmm.
And it's such a simple thing to do, is just to listen and love. um, I don't get why we overcomplicate it, but yeah. um
Another thing that we were going to be doing via affirmation
mm,
was allies and appetizers. So we were going to be holding small gatherings, and I'm sure Susie talked about this last week.
Susie mentioned this. Yeah, tell us
Yeah.
more.
So just before the pandemic hit, we had arranged a date where we were going to do that. We were going to host it at my house for the first one, and unfortunately, that had to be cancelled and has had to be cancelled since. But as soon as we were able to, we're going to start that up again. We're really going to institute that again because we think it's really significant and actually really great to tell other people about it. So if someone knows you're going to an allies and appetizers, they know you're an ally.
Absolutely.
And we're also marching in Gay Pride in Birmingham.
Okay, Let's do a shout out for Gay Pride because we're going to be there. 21st Century Saints are coming. the, the Scots are invading. What can we expect?
So you can expect the time of your life. You will be so surprised and you will be so humbled by the love that's expressed at those events, because this is a group of people who band together because they are walking with their tribe
Mm.
and they feel comfort and safety. And you know that there's you should really talk to Claire about her experience of going to Gay Pride a few years ago. She'll be able to describe it better than I can with the LDS glasses on,
Yeah,
because I'm kind of used to it now.
I love that. This is going to be my teen's first Pride, so we are really excited about it. Um, okay, well, I guess to
No,
wrap
actually,
up.
so
Mm,
let me just say that this is going to take place. I'm
oh
just
yes, please.
flicking through my diary. I think it's the 25th of September,
Yep,
in
the
Birmingham
last
City
weekend in
Centre.
September. Yeah.
It is, yeah.
We can also, if you guys, if our audience want to find out more, or if you want to signpost someone to find it out more, um, Affirmation UK and Ireland have a great Facebook page. There are safe places for you to be able to talk. Um, there, my experience of it has been one of overwhelming love. No matter where you're at, it's an incredibly supportive space. So it's definitely worth checking out. Um,
Thank you, Jane. I'm glad to hear you say that.
yeah, it's doing a great job, and I know that it's going to keep growing, especially if all of these great things are happening. Um, tell me about your hopes or your what you would like to happen next, both for Affirmation and for the church.
I'd like Affirmation to grow. I'd like Affirmation to be the go-to organisation when church leaders or church members are grappling with these things. We have people who are members of Affirmation who are active members of the church, active believing members, active non-believing members, non-members, former members. So pretty much we have members who are kind of across the spectrum, if you like, um, of the LDS experience. And we just want that to grow. We want people to know that Affirmation exists. We want to know that it is a safe place. And it's a safe place for leaders. We don't discuss doctrine. We're not
Mm,
going to get involved in any doctrinal discussion with anyone about these topics. It is no good ever comes from it. Nobody wins, and so let's just leave it. Let's just support the person. Let's just leave it at that. For the church, of course, I hope the church has, becomes more welcoming. Of course, I hope the church becomes a place where the LGBTQ community feels safe for those who want to attend. And beyond that, actually, um, I have some other hopes for the church, but this isn't really the forum to express those. As the president of Affirmation, those are my hopes.
I love that. Are there any final words that you would like to share with us before we wrap up? Is there anything that you'd like to, any message you'd like to give to our audience?
I thought, you know, it's not difficult. Just love one another. That's not difficult.
Absolutely. Ken, thank you so much for tonight. I've loved hearing about your story and your work. I really want to encourage our audience, if you're feeling like you can, please consider please consider maybe telling your bishop about this incredible organization. Even if they never use it, for a bishop to have affirmation in their, their information tools, that's got to be a great thing. And you just don't know who it's going to help. So I'm going to really encourage you guys to do a brave thing and tell your bishop about affirmation. Come and find out about affirmation on their Facebook pages and websites. And yeah, if anyone wants to get in touch, what's the easiest way for them to do that?
They can contact me through the Affirmation Facebook page. If they send a message to Affirmation, I'll see that message.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time tonight, and thank you, audience. We will see you at the same time next week. Before you go, Ken, could I just, from my heart, bless your journey? You are an absolute inspiration, and I know that I say this on behalf of Alana too, that we want to bless your work, that we want to bless your life, your relationship, your friendships, and your role as a parent. We're just so thankful for everything that you're doing, and if there's anything we can do in the future to help, please let us know. So
Thank
good
you
night,
for,
everyone, and
thank
we'll
you for
see
having
you.
me on.
No problem at all. We'll see you all next week.